Good morning, everyone. Pastor Craig here. Welcome to your morning devotion. Today, let's title our subject, our little talk today, Different Paces. You'll understand that later on, but first, let's dive in. We're going to start off with Genesis chapter 18. And in Genesis chapter 18, you've probably heard the story preached quite a lot. You probably know it quite well. The Lord appears to Abraham on the plains of Mamre, and he's there with two angels. And so Abraham sees these three men, and he is a wonderful host to them. He goes out and he runs and he greets them and he says, "Please come and eat." And they say, "Okay, yeah, we're going to come and eat." And Abraham's like, "I'm going to feed you. I'm going to feed you a feast. I'm going to give you water. Don't leave until you have a proper meal." It's like going over to your grandparents' house. You're not leaving until you have a proper meal. So Abraham, he goes and he gets people cooking in the kitchen. He goes out, he chooses a choice animal, gets a young man to slaughter it, and gets all these things cooking, and gets a big meal for them, sets it down, and he's kind of the waiter for that day. He is waiting upon the Lord and his angels and feeding them, and they're having a little bit of conversation, and likely you know the story well. And so the three men say to Abraham, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And Abraham says, she's back in the tent right now. And the man says, which is the Lord, he says, "I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son." I'm going to come back, and your wife Sarah is going to have a son. Now, they're both very old. The previous chapter tells us that Abraham is 99 years old. So they're at least 99 years old right now. And Sarah hears it from the tent door, which is behind Abraham, and apparently it's not too far off because she can hear the conversation. And you've likely heard it preached well before. She's in behind the tent, and Abraham is told, your wife is going to have a son. And then verse 11, it tells us, "Now Abraham and Sarah are old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the matter of woman." She's not really having children anymore. And so that's why in verse 12 it says, "That's why Sarah laughs within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also." It's telling us that we're going to have a kid. Well, that's just kind of a silly, funny statement. And so, she chuckles to herself. Yeah, that's not going to happen. And, I think preachers like to pick on Sarah. Not going to lie. I think preachers like to pick on her because we're all, Sarah shouldn't have laughed, and, she made a mistake. And, well, she does. And no one's quite wrong in saying that. But I think sometimes we forget who laughed first. Because it wasn't Sarah who laughed first, actually. It was Abraham. If we go back to the previous chapter of Genesis, chapter 17, verse number 1 says Abraham is 99 years old. The Lord appears to him, tells him, "I am God Almighty, walk before me, be perfect." And he starts establishing a covenant with him. And in this particular instance, is the covenant of circumcision, and he's bringing him through that. Your child is 8 days old. Here's what's going to happen. And then if you go down to verse 15, it says, "And God said to Abraham, as for Sarah your wife, don't call her Sarah anymore, or Sarai anymore, but Sarah shall her name be, and I will bless her and give thee a son also for her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations, kings of people shall be of her." Well, here's what we know about Abraham and Sarah. They're really old. They're not going to have children, at least from a human's point of view. And what is Abraham's reaction, or Abram's reaction? Well, verse 17, it says, "Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed." So, well, a couple things come to mind here. First of all, I think Abraham's laugh is certainly less discreet, probably a whole lot more rude. He's falling on his face and laughing. I mean, at the start of this chapter, at the start of chapter 17, he's falling on his face in reverence and in awe. But here he's falling on his face laughing. So, when you're not telling a joke and somebody falls on their face laughing, well, that's pretty rude, isn't it? So Abraham is falling on his face laughing, and he says in his heart, well, shall the child be born unto him that is 100 years old, and shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said to God, what about Ishmael? Why don't you use Ishmael? And we're not going to go down that road. But God says, I hear your plea about Ishmael, and he's going to be a nation as well, and I'll take care of him. But Abraham laughed first, is my point today. We all kind of harp on Sarah and say, oh, Sarah messed up. She shouldn't have laughed. But Abraham laughed first. So what does this tell me? Well, let's think about the story. It's telling me that Abraham and Sarah are probably at different walks, different points within their faith, different areas within their life and their relationship with God. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Abraham is talking to God. He's having an interaction with God. And, God says you're going to have a child. And Abraham falls on his face laughing. A bit rude, but he's having a conversation with God. And he's working things out. And Abraham is obedient after this. It's certainly a hard concept for him to even understand that he's going to have a child as old as he is. But he does come to terms with it. And that's his pace of faith. And that's the way that he is walking. And that's the experience that he's having. And he's got to work through things in his mind and come to terms, God's not kidding around. And he is actually being quite serious right now. And likely, if he's a good husband, and if he communicates at least a little bit, then he's probably had a conversation with Sarai and said, this is what God said. He said, we're going to have a son. And, well, from the next chapter that we read, we can probably determine, and assuming that they have had a conversation, we can determine that, Sarah is on a different pace in her faith and a different pace within her walk with God, because I'm making an assumption here, I don't know, but I'm assuming that they at least would have talked about it. If not, it doesn't matter. Because here is Sarah, and she's overhearing this conversation, and once again, God is reaffirming his word to Abraham, and he's saying, your wife is going to have a son. And this time, Abraham is more accepting of it. But it's Sarah's turn, and she laughs, and, maybe it is her first time hearing about it. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. But now it's her turn to chuckle. And what I want to bring us to today, what I want us to think about is, Sarah laughs to herself in the tent, and she has her moment of laughter after Abraham has in the previous chapter had his moment of laughter, and these are a little bit separated in time. But here's the thing. Abraham doesn't, immediately rebuke Sarah. He says, oh, don't be so silly or don't be foolish. Of course he's going to do it. And he doesn't act all high and righteous as if he's never struggled with this before. That's what I really want us to think about. He doesn't come in with an attitude of, oh, I'm so righteous and I believe in God and he's going to do it and you should too and all this kind of stuff. He doesn't rebuke her in any way. He doesn't discourage her in any way. He doesn't become a stumbling block to her in any way. In fact, Abraham does what probably we should do too. He lets God deal with it. He lets God deal with it. Abraham, he doesn't rebuke her. He doesn't give her a difficult time and you should have more faith and you should be better in your walk with God. No, he just kind of sits back and he allows God to deal with Sarah, and God deals with Sarah in an interesting way. But all of this just kind of made me think about, we walk through things in life, and if we've been in the church for a little while, then hopefully we've grown in faith, and hopefully we've come through some things. And so when new people in the church are coming in, or someone's dealing with something that maybe we've been through before, and maybe we have more maturity with them, let's just be patient with them. Let's be patient. Let's allow them to have room to grow. Let's have them room to respond and to react in their own way. And most of all, instead of getting all up in a tyrant of you should have, more faith. Let's instead be encouraging. Let's not be discouraging. Let's not be a stumbling block. Let's not get in the way of anybody's faith, but let's just, pray with them and allow God and say, God, you're working in this person's life. I pray that you would continue to work and help them, and that they would grow in faith, and that, maybe like me, this was an obstacle that I faced, but God, you brought me through it. And so let's pray for our brothers and sisters and say, Lord, bring them through it. Bring them through it too. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, is that, we're all going through life and in our own pace, and we all deal with things mentally at our own rate of thinking, and we all get through things differently. But let's just allow grace for each other, pray for each other, that God will bring us through. God will bring them through like He brought us through. Amen. I hope that's encouraging. Hope that encourages you today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and God bless you.